Welcome, everybody. We are live. It is a Friday edition for the first time ever of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardians Show. You fans spoke. You said you wanted more, and so you get more of us. You get me with my bright red shirt, which kind of blends into the background here, and Zach Meisel, who, of course, is sick. Everybody's been sick lately. It's now your turn, Zach. How you doing?
I'm good. How many hot dogs do you think you could eat in 10 minutes?
It's a great question. You know what? I cannot believe it. For the first time in maybe 10 years, I did not watch the hot dog eating contest because I guess it lost its steam with no Joey Chestnut. Do you know who won, by the way? And then I'll answer your question.
Some guy.
Just some guy. Crazy Legs Hirsch? I don't know. I got to look. We'll have to look
No,
it up.
he wasn't Chestnut and he wasn't Kobayashi, so
Yeah.
he wasn't important.
No, certainly was not. What a disappointment. But how many hot dogs could I eat in 10 minutes? Not that many. That's not like, listen, I'm not kidding anybody. I can put down some food. When I was in my 20s, I could have put it down really fast. My buddies and I remember going to a Tony Roma's. Have I mentioned this story? I repeat my stories sometimes. I don't know. You remember Tony Roma's? It was like a rib place. I remember going with 3 of my friends, and 2 of them were like big guys like me, and they were doing all-you-can-eat ribs, and I think between the 4 of us, we ate, I don't know, 150 ribs, 200 ribs. They didn't make their money off of us. You know, they made their money off the skinny people. But hot dogs, I'm not a big hot dog guy. I don't think I could eat. I don't even know if I could eat 10.
Have you heard people doing the 999 challenge at a baseball game?
What's that? Oh, a dog every inning?
Yeah, and a beer.
Oh, dog and a beer. I could not do that. I don't drink. I've been drunk once since college. That was my honeymoon. My bachelor party. That's it.
That's just so much. That just sits with you, and
Oh,
it's especially if it's a hot summer day.
Oh. Yeah. No, I mean, I like an occasional beer at the ballpark on a hot summer day, but I'm not drinking one each inning, and I'm certainly not eating a hot dog each inning. How many hot dogs? I'm going to say officially in 10 minutes, I could eat 10 hot dogs. I'll say, which is a lot for for normal people, not like competitive eaters. I don't even know if I could eat that many, but I'll say 10. What say you on that?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like to eat more, it's probably got to be a worse quality hot dog.
Mm.
It's got to be like, I like the bigger ones, but it's got to be like a smaller, crappier one just because you can eat it quicker. I don't know.
By the way, the winner was a guy named Patrick Bertoletti,
of course,
who had 58 dogs. The women's champ, Miki Sudo, had 51. That's pretty close between the two. And then he won by 5 hot dogs over Jeffrey Esper. I know you needed to know those names.
So we had, when I was in college at Ohio State, I was editor of the Lantern. We had a competitive eater, a local guy who's no longer with us, named Scott Bickle, who was trying to break in to the industry. I don't know, what do you call that?
Yeah, I guess so.
And so he wanted to come to our newsroom and like do some sort of eating challenge. And we ordered like 200 Raising Cane's chicken tenders.
Okay.
And it was him against, we asked our staff, who do you think could give him the best challenge? It was the most disappointing thing I've ever watched. We thought these guys were going to this guy was going to shovel 150 of these things down his throat in, 15 minutes. And he like barely beat our campus editor or something. It was terrible. We had so many leftovers.
Oh man, that's funny. But listen, you got to be to be great as a competitive eater. That's it's a special thing. You got to train your body, and it's always skinny guys that win these things. At least for the hot dogs, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, let's get to some baseball. 4th of July. It's a great time to talk baseball. The day after 4th of July. For those who don't know and maybe just came across us now and are saying, well, what are you guys doing on Friday? You're not normally on Friday. If you hadn't heard it earlier in the week, starting this week, we're doing 2 shows a week. Our normal times will be Monday and Friday at 9:30 a.m. This week was off a little because we did Tuesday and it's a holiday, but still going forward, Monday, most weeks at least, Monday and Friday at 9:30 a.m. May do some additional stuff leading up to the trade deadline. I'm off the leading up to the trade deadline, but I'm taking my laptop with me. If there's breaking news, we'll jump in at some point with the breaking news to see what the Guardians do. We are, 25 days away from the trade deadline? And so we'll get to that and where the pitching staff stands after Gavin Williams. But first, let's talk about All-Stars, Zach, because yesterday it was announced that Jose Ramirez and Steve Kwan, both starters for the All-Star game. It's first time in quite a while that the Guardians have 2 starters on the All-Star game roster.
Yeah, we spend so much time talking about every year how underrated Jose Ramirez is, and I think that's the case. But it is a reminder that I think nationally people do recognize how good he is. He's going to start for the 3rd time, 6th All-Star appearance overall, well deserved. Kwan, that's really cool that he got elected like that, because you want people to take notice. He's it's easy to see what Aaron Judge is doing. It's easy to see what Juan Soto's doing. But he beat out some guys who are having good seasons, like Kyle Tucker, who's having a good season in a big market. So I think, his flirtation with 400 there for a few days probably helped put him on people's radar. But so well deserved. And also, I don't know what the lineup's going to look like eventually, where Bruce Bochy will slot everybody. But it would be really cool, not even from like a lineup composition standpoint, but like just physically watching Steve Kwan maybe hit in front of Aaron Judge, or something like that. Just the size difference there. So it's the guy has been. It's hard to say he's the best hitter in the league, or he's the best at what he does.
Yeah,
and without a doubt, deserving of an All-Star appearance. And I'm glad that he got rewarded in the fashion that I think he deserved to get rewarded in.
In fact, perfect. You know how the players line up on the foul line before the game. If you had Kwan leading off, and then Judge batting second, and then Ramirez hitting third, this giant Judge would be bookmarked by these 2 tiny guys who are just great ball players. And I gotta say, Zach, I don't think Jose Ramirez is underrated anymore. I think for years he was. And you want to say, well, does the casual fan watching the Angels know Jose Ramirez? Well, maybe not. I don't, yes, nobody's going to stand out like Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is going to be more famous than any other player because he's freakishly big for a baseball player. And he plays for the Yankees, that factors in. But the fact that Steve Kwan made the All-Star game shows, I think, what I've said for a while is, I think fans are getting better and better at voting for the All-Star game in baseball. I think I don't like when I understand why teams do it, but I don't like when teams just promote, like, let's vote for all of our guys. I'm not voting for Andres Jimenez and Brian Rocchio for the All-Star game. They don't deserve it. I don't want to vote. And I know some fans do that, but I hate that because I vote for the guys who deserve to go. You want to pick your team as a tiebreaker, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And ultimately, it's the fans' choice. But I think more and more fans vote for the players they think deserve it rather than just their guys.
Right around the time when the Royals made back-to-back World Series, like 10 years ago, there was a year where Omar Infante was the leading vote getter at second base for a while for them. And he was having such a terrible season that he got designated for assignment before the All-Star game, and he was leading the votes. And that actually made me want him to win, just to see what would have happened if he would have just worn like a t-shirt at second base and not tied to any team. It's a reminder too. I mean, you see, like, it's not a surprise the Yankees have multiple starters. The Orioles were in the race at every single position. Like, those teams that are having the good years, especially the bigger markets, the Phillies have 3 starters. Like, that's going to happen. So it's cool that you got multiple, because you feel like on the national stage, like you're up there with those teams. I mean, those have been the best teams in the league all year. Yeah. You're one of them. So I think it's a cool reminder. And it's also, I don't know, it takes me back to the 90s when it was like they'd have 3 starters in that lineup every year. Now, they wouldn't often put pitchers on the All-Star team.
No.
Because that's where they were lacking. But they'd have, the starting second baseman and left fielder or right fielder or third baseman year after year. So it got away from that for a while. But now you have multiple All-Star starters. That's pretty cool. And cool for Kwan too, because he's got someone else, that he can follow around.
And you could argue that Josh Naylor should be the starter at first base.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to make the team, but you could definitely argue he should be the starter as well. We know he's going to make it. We know Clase is going to make it. Are we holding out hope for anybody else?
Yeah. So Tyler Kepner on The Athletic today had David Fry making it as a reserve.
Okay.
So it's not impossible. If you look at the numbers, I mean, they're all-star quality. I don't know if he's got the quantity to go with it. And it's tough because you have to make sure everybody's represented, and
right.
Someone's going to make it from the White Sox.
I feel like that should be out the window these days. I'd say the only exception is the team that's hosting has to have a player. But I mean, why does there need to be a White Sox player on there, or an Oakland player? Maybe there is somebody deserving off the top of my head. I'm not thinking of anybody, but still. Anyway, that's old news. All right, so we know 2 starters. We know 2 other guys are very likely to go. We'll see about David Fry. One guy that will not be on the All-Star team, of course, Gavin Williams, just made his first major league start of the season, and he struggled. He wasn't missing bats. I was a little surprised Stephen Vogt left him in as long as he did when he was getting in trouble there in the 4th. What do you make of his first start there, Zach?
It looked like a guy who had not pitched in a major league game in 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The velocity was good. That was encouraging. He averaged 97 on his fastball. Came out in the first inning like 98, 99. So that was good to see. What was weird was he didn't throw a single slider, and I think he threw 10 curveballs. So I think it's just not trusting the command of those pitches, but you become predictable when you're just throwing fastballs and cutters the whole time. So the important thing was like he pitched and he stayed healthy. I think he threw 74 pitches. So, build on that next time, but he's going to need to, you've got like a 3-month runway here where you're hoping he can be a guy you can hand the ball to in a playoff game.
Right.
And I think you're confident in Tanner Bybee. I think you want to be confident in Gavin Williams. I think everything is saying you should be confident in Ben Lively, except just our knowledge of his track record. So you need him to figure it out, but you have to think of it as basically he just finished spring training. And if this was start 1 for him on March 28th, you wouldn't be freaking out or making too much of it. So we shouldn't do that on July 5th either.
I agree. I thought, as you mentioned, that the velocity being where it was a major positive, and now he can build off of that. If he had gone out there and he was topping out at 92, 93, you would have been like, uh-oh, what is happening here? But he wasn't. No big league pitcher can succeed when he's not confident in throwing all his arsenal. I mean, you can't just throw fastballs down the middle and hope to beat good league hitters, big league hitters, even if it is the White Sox. And that's what happened, as you said. He had no confidence in his other pitches. I guess it'd be interesting to see how long it takes him to get there and start building up. Maybe that was part of the game plan. Maybe they said to him, hey, listen, if you're not comfortable throwing these pitches, then just do this. I don't know. That seems a little crazy in a major league game, but you never know. It's about the long haul. They have a huge lead. I'm not sure, but obviously that's something that's going to have to change no matter how hard he's throwing.
Yeah, I mean,
McKenzie, his velocity's fine. I mean, it's not Gavin Williams, but it's fine. But when you throw the ball right down the middle and you have no command, well, you're not going to win ever.
And you can't be predictable. If the White Sox know that it's going to be a fastball or a cutter coming, that's a lot easier to game plan around that. He's a strikeout pitcher. He had 2 strikeouts.
Yeah.
That's because hitters, your fastball, that's great that you're throwing 97, 98. But when a hitter knows that that's coming, they can just sit on the fastball and it got hit around. So, it's interesting. He threw the slider. That was the pitch he threw second most last year, and he didn't throw it once. And I know he wanted to work on that pitch more this year too, and just making sure that like the slider and the curveball play off the fastball properly. So it's a work in progress. It's going to be a work in progress. And I think that's why he can't just be the savior. Gavin Williams' return is not your big trade acquisition. You can't play it off like that. You still need more help.
Yeah, and he'll make 2 more starts, assuming he's fine. He'll make 2 more starts before the break. He'll pitch, I believe, the first game in Detroit on Monday. Is it Monday or Tuesday? They have a day off Monday?
Yeah, Monday.
And then he'll pitch in that weekend series against Tampa before the All-Star break. Meanwhile, another pitcher, and there have not been a lot of there have been really no surprise positives for the Guardians pitching staff outside of Ben Lively. Starting rotation, right? Everything's either been worse than you thought, or in Bobby's case, just as good, I guess, as you thought. Maybe at this point a little better. But quietly here, Zach, Carlos Carrasco, in his last 3 starts, and 4 of his last 5 have pitched pretty well, but last 3 starts against Toronto, Baltimore, and the White Sox, he's gone 17 innings. He's allowed 6 runs, 4 homers, but only 3 walks, 14 hits, and 17 strikeouts. We thought a month ago Carrasco would be out of this rotation at some point, but he's been better than McKenzie. He's been better than Logan Allen. And right now, and often enough this year, to his credit, he's given them a chance to stay in the game. He's never going to be what he was, but he's given them a chance to stay in these games, especially these last 3 starts. What do you make of it?
He's been pretty consistent, not consistently great, but I think what you're going to get from him. And I think that's the difference between him and Allen and McKenzie is the other two. I don't know if they're going 2 1/3 innings and giving up 7 runs, or if they're going to go 6 innings and give up 1 run.
Right.
So, if you can get 5 innings from Carrasco and he only gives up 2 or 3 runs, you'll take that. And that's what he's done, honestly, most of the season. I mean, it was rough in April.
Yeah.
But really, since then, I mean, he had 3 good starts in May. Well, 2.5 good starts in May, and then went on the injured list for a couple weeks. But, he's been fine for a fill-in 5th starter. I mean, the expectations are low here. He's 37 years old. He hasn't had a good season in 3 years. So it's... look, did anyone think he was still going to be on the roster in July?
No.
When it was a nice, heartwarming story in spring training that this guy was on a minor league deal with an invitation to big league camp. And, it was a cool homecoming, but you thought at most he'd be the long man in the bullpen for a little bit. And then that was it. So I don't know. He's given a little more than I expected, but I think you're right. It's in the context of how shaky the rotation's been.
Yeah.
He's been really helpful lately.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I got no problem with him as my 5th starter. Nothing. And in a perfect world, Ben Lively's my 4th starter. Bobby and Williams are 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. And, it comes back to, again, they're going to need a number 2, number 3 starter, that type of guy at minimum. And that's if Gavin Williams gets himself right, which I think it's reasonable to believe he will.
And I don't think Matthew Boyd is the answer there either.
No, definitely not. And the more I tell you, I brought him up a few times. Jameson Taillon pitched another good game against the Phillies yesterday. He pitched really well. I believe his ERA is under 3 now, or just above 3. Reasonable contract for 2 more years after this. I mean, and for the first time in a while, it's like, Guardians can afford to take a pitcher that has a couple of years because they're not overloaded with starting pitchers right now. And to have to plunk a veteran, Carrasco's a veteran, obviously, but Carrasco's a veteran at the end of his rope. Jameson Taillon's a veteran that's still a decent pitcher. And I the more I think about it, the more I think that's one of the guys the Guardians should really be targeting.
What about Kikuchi with Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm good with Kikuchi. Barrios is too much money, I think. And Chris Bassett's another guy. I know he's older.
There are some unanswered questions about the finances here, how much money the team's willing to take on. I think there's flexibility this year. We've seen them, remember when they got Jay Bruce and it was because they were willing to spend $5 million on him for 2 months and other teams weren't. the big question is, how much future money are you willing to take on? They love flexibility. They love pushing that sort of thing off until the offseason. Bassett, he'll make $22 million next year.
Yep.
So do you want him to be your highest paid or second highest paid player? I don't remember Ramirez's exact salary, but Bassett's been really he's good every year. He's so consistent. Yeah. So that it might be a good investment, but again, do you want to commit that now? I don't know.
And do you give up more in terms of prospect capital to get the other team to pay? Because Taillon's making a good amount of money too. He's making $18 million a year for 2 years after this. So that's a lot. I'm sure if the Cubs $8 million per year on that, well, then you like it even more. But to get that Cubs to eat that $8 million more, maybe the Guardians have to give up another prospect. You would think you wouldn't want to do that, but it'll be interesting to see if that's part of the mix.
Yeah. And look, money shouldn't be an issue. I mean, the crowds have been unbelievable for a while now. Their attendance is up. It was up a lot last year. We know they didn't spend money over the offseason, so
that's right.
There should be flexibility there. Kikuchi makes so much sense to me because he's making $10 million this year. You'd be on the hook for 3, 4, and then he's a free agent. And he's got great stuff. The numbers are solid this year. They're okay. He's kind of had a weird up and down career, but if you just look at the pure stuff, it's really good. I'm surprised he's not better.
Yeah, he has been up and down in his career, but 3 of the last 4 years, he's been pretty good overall. And, he's still young enough that you think he'll pitch well. I'm trying to think how much he's pitched in the postseason. Let's see. He's only made one. He's actually never started a game in the postseason. You believe that? He came out of the bullpen last year. But he's never started a game. Anyway,
I always also wonder, this team knows the types of pitchers it can get more out of. You trust if they're targeting a certain pitcher, it's probably a good reason why. If Ben Lively signed with the Rockies over the winter, no one would have expected him to have a good year. We still didn't expect him to have this sort of year in Cleveland, but it makes more sense just because of their history with pitching.
Although, oddly enough, Cal Quantrill's had a good season for the Rockies. He pitched an okay game yesterday. Zach, quick break here. Folks, I want to talk to you about the Game Time app. If you're thinking about going to see the Guardians this weekend, it's the final series at home before the All-Star break, playing the Giants. Should be good crowds again this weekend. Well, if you want to wait and try to get a good deal, you can do that. The Game Time app is absolutely unbelievable. You could browse, whether you go on a Guardians game, maybe you want to go on the road, see the Guardians against when they play the Tigers, or wrap up the first half against the Rays. If you wait, the longer you wait to buy the tickets through the Game Time app, the better deal you're going to get. I have a buddy who got Bruce Springsteen tickets in New Jersey through the Game Time app, and he couldn't even believe it. Less than $100 for the tickets. Bruce Springsteen in New Jersey usually goes for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but he waited till the last minute. So check out the Game Time app. Again, unbelievable deals there. Make sure that when you do, use the promo code Locked On and get $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON. All right, Zach, this past weekend, I know it feels like coming off a weekend because we're usually doing the show on Monday, and yesterday was a holiday, but Guardians take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. Obviously, overall, they're not playing this last week or so as crisp a baseball as they had played before, but in the end, they get the job done this weekend, or again this past week, and win 2 out of 3. The 2 games they won, they scored 15 runs. Ben Lively got the victory yesterday. And the interesting thing of late is the Guardians played so many close games, Zach, that we're used to Clase being in every game, but lately, in fact, it's what I think it's 5 of the last 6 games have been decided either win or lost by at least 4 runs. So Emmanuel Clase has actually gotten a little bit of a break here lately.
Is the bullpen getting too much rest?
Yeah, well, the bullpen has struggled a little bit this last week. You know, we've
Yeah,
seen a few guys.
This is a good thing.
Mm.
You know, if for those guys like Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis, who had
Yeah.
never done this before.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get the All-Star break. That's great. But I think it's good to just get a little bit of a reset. A lot of those guys were on pace for like 80 appearances for much of the first half. And 70 is probably the magic number that you're targeting. So, you know, if it was up to Clase, he pitched 120 times. That guy always he feels like he never gets tired and wants to be out there every day. So it's a good thing for the bullpen overall. And they need like that's got to be a strength in the second half too. Bullpens can be unpredictable, especially with a bunch of rookies out there. So they need to make sure that they have the depth and just the health to be able to have as good of a second half as they've had in the first half.
Yeah, they sent Eli Morgan down this week. He hasn't had a particularly great season, but you're right. From year to year, certainly, and even from half to half or month to month, you never know with a bullpen. It's not like a lot of these guys have a proven track record of great pitching. I mean, Hunter Gaddis new to the role. Scott Barlow has not been as good the last couple of years. So, yeah, Clase's got the track record here now for a few years, but a lot of these guys, they're doing it for the first or second time, and you never know. You never know what the All-Star break is going to do, and then all of a sudden the bullpen's not pitching as well. It seems very reliable now. I think there's enough good arms out there that even if one or two guys are struggling, they'll be okay. But we've talked about this also. You can never have enough good arms in that pen. So beyond getting a starting pitcher, I'm still being aggressive and trying to get another good reliever, because there's always going to come a time where somebody in that pen is struggling. Not everybody's going to pitch well the whole year. And by the time we get to the playoffs, maybe 3 or 4 of these guys right now who are doing great won't be. And it'll be down to only 2, 3 guys. But maybe you made a trade for another guy and now he's pitching great. And it's juggling a lot of balls, because you just never know when it goes south for these bullpenners. Baseball is very tricky that way.
It's crazy. Like, you usually have a circle of trust. It's usually like 3 relievers, maybe.
Yeah.
And this year it's been 6, 7 at times.
Yeah.
You know, Hench's coming back. I think you can trust him. Sandlin back from injury now.
Yeah.
We know Stephen Vogt trusts him. So even with that said, I'm with you. If you can get someone who's got experience, who isn't going to be daunted by pitching in a 1-run game in the 8th inning with 2 runners on in a playoff game on the road, I don't know that there's going to be an Andrew Miller out there. You know, Mason Miller from Oakland is the big fish out there, but Oakland has 100% of the leverage, doesn't need to move him. He's got 5 years of team control. After that, like, it's so much of the bullpen market depends on all these teams that are caught in the middle that we've been talking about for weeks now. And this weekend, what do you know? Another chance. You get the Giants in town. You sweep them. You push them closer to being a seller, and maybe they have some interesting pieces. So it's like Tanner Scott from Miami is one of the names out there that would be an upgrade for somebody who's got really good stuff in the bullpen. So, like, there'll be guys out there, and I'm with you. If you can get, especially if it's difficult to find that frontline starting pitcher on the trade market, it's never a bad idea to add bullpen help.
The Giants have the Rogers brothers, Taylor and Tyler, who are both good relievers. The Cubs have a pretty bad bullpen overall, but they've got one guy who's really developed the last couple of years, Mark Leiter Jr., who's pitched great for them, although he's hurt right now, who could be an interesting guy. Yimi Garcia from Toronto.
That's your guy.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's on the injured list too, but he's about to come off. So there's some guys. There's interesting guys that can help on all these teams.
Like Pete Fairbanks.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, they traded Savali.
Yeah.
But they're also now, they've played better lately. They're above 500. So it's, and then you're going to get teams that are going to have to decide, you know, is it worth it to maybe be the third wild card, or do we try to sell off a few pieces and still be the third wild card? I don't know.
All right, let's take some fan comments here. Let's see what we got. Marty says, my guys, bull with the fresh shave. Yes. Decided to shave today, not look like a total slob. Let's see. Michael, they were sitting on his fastball because his off-speed stuff, he couldn't throw a strike. They didn't even throw it. Much of anything. But no, yeah, that was a problem. Ha-Sung Kim and Rob Riffsnyder would be good additions. We didn't talk much today, Zach. We will, obviously, next week about hitting trades. And we have talked a lot about that over the weeks. I'm still in favor of getting one big bat and not a platoon guy. I mean, I'm fine. You want to get a Rob Refsnyder as a platoon
isn't it
guy?
obvious that they need someone who can hit second? We've seen Schneemann, Freeman, Martinez, Jimenez. It's a new guy every day.
Yes.
So why not get someone proven?
100%. Phil, pitching horrible, but we have given up the third fewest runs in the league. Must be the bullpen. It definitely is. Good to have Nick Sandlin back, says B. Skrills. Curtis says we need another starter. Bad. Gavin didn't look to be determined. JP Sears is better than Allen. He is. I'm fine getting JP Sears, but I don't want JP Sears to be the best pitcher they get. If they get two starters and JP Sears is the second guy, okay, that's fine. But I'm not going to be comfortable with JP Sears as anything better than a fourth starter. And even that, I'm not sure about.
He's like Logan Allen, but updated to the latest iOS. Similar pitchers.
Yeah. Bruce says, love the show. Thank you, Bruce. Derek says, Angel didn't do too bad yesterday at number 2. Yeah, I'm with Nick. I'm with Zach. You need a number 2 hitter, a legitimate number 2 hitter. And that will kind of get you where you want to be. And then, you do some platooning and whatever at the 8 and 9 spots. So that's fine. But they're not going to have a perfect lineup. But I think a good number 2, 3 starter and a number 2 hitter those are the 2 key things this team has to do, to me.
And I don't think that's too difficult to pull off.
No.
Especially once, I'm a broken record here, but it's tough to pull off now because there's like 5 sellers.
Yeah.
But there will be 12 sellers in a few weeks.
Yes.
And that's when you can go get Taylor Ward and Chris Bassett.
There you go. Zach, feel better. Good job out of you pushing through. We'll watch the Guardians this weekend. Thanks to everybody who joined us on our first ever Friday show. Again, every Monday and Friday at 9:30 a.m. is the plan. If we change the plan at any point, days or times-wise, we'll let you know. But going forward, every Monday and Friday at 9:30. Thanks for all the chats. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.